The Black Millionaire and the Homeless Man, a story of hope and change. Ethan Carter was a ghost, a shadow in a mountain of snow. The world knew him as the reclusive billionaire, the man who vanished after his wife and daughter died in a tragic accident. But no one knew the full story, the one hidden behind layers of silence and ice. Out in the frozen woods, where no one dared to go, Ethan's cabin stood like a dark secret, swallowed by the wild. He didn't want company, didn't want to feel the crushing emptiness inside. The snow blanketed everything in cold silence, and Ethan wandered through it like a man half alive, his breath sharp like knives in the freezing air. Then, from nowhere, the stillness cracked. There she was, Grace Miller, a young woman clinging to life, her fingers blue and stiff, her face pinched with pain and desperation. In her arms, a tiny baby, Noah, wrapped in a faded blanket, crying weakly against the biting cold. She looked like a frozen wraith, lost in the wilderness, skin pale, eyes glassy with freezing tears. Ethan's chest twisted, lungs shrinking painfully. She wasn't supposed to be here. None of this should have happened in his quiet world. But something raw and urgent pulled him forward. Grace's story splattered quick and cruel through her trembling voice, fleeing brutal nights with a man named Brandon, her ex-husband, the kind of terror you feel crawling up your spine. Ugly and relentless, she escaped into the woods, dragging Noah from nightmare to nightmare, until the snow nearly claimed them both. Ethan, with hands numb but steady, scooped them up, carried them through drifts that felt like drowning in cold glass. Every step was a battle, her whispered thanks barely audible over the wind's howl. Her presence twisted something deep inside him. A fire he thought dead flickered, burning with grief and hope. But the past isn't done. Shadows slink like hunters behind the trees. Brandon's threats crawl through phone calls like poison, dark promises wrapped in rage. The law weighs heavy, ready to snatch Noah away. Ethan's fortress of loneliness trembles under the storm that's coming. And then strange moments start to slip in, whispered echoes, memories tangled with the present, faces from Ethan's lost past flickering like ghosts beside Grace and her baby, a bond forming in silence, in desperation, or something more. Why had fate thrown them together? What secrets are buried beneath the snow and silence that grip his place? And will Ethan's broken heart learn to beat again, or shatter under the weight of all that haunts them? The wind picks up. The woods seem to hold their breath. Something is coming, something that will change everything. Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important warning. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube has removed their subscriptions without warning. Just take a quick look at the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I don't want you to miss out on any exclusive content coming your way. And while you're there, leave that powerful like that helps me a lot with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know all the amazing people who are part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's interact. The wind screamed through the trees, a warning of what was to come. Ethan clutched Grace and Noah tighter as shadows deepened around them. Something was brewing in the air, a tension thick enough to feel on their skin. "Ethan!" Grace's voice trembled. Her eyes darted toward the gloom, fear freezing her to the spot. He felt it too, a sinister presence lurking just beyond sight. But he shook his head, refusing to let that darkness in. Then, from the depths of the shadows, a howl tore through the silence. It wasn't a wolf. It was closer, human. A voice broke through the trees, dripping with venom. "Grace, where are you?" Ethan's heart raced. The name sent icy fingers up his spine. Brandon. The man had found them. Panic set in as footsteps crunched on snow, deliberate and angry. Everything they were building could collapse in an instant. "Stay behind me," Ethan urged, shaping a wall of resolve around Grace and Noah. He could feel the baby's warmth seeping through the blanket, a fragile spark amid the encroaching dread. But Grace shook her head, desperation spilling over. "He'll hurt you. We need to run." "I won't leave you," Ethan shouted, anchoring himself where he stood. The wind howled in agreement, swirling snowflakes like a storm of whispers. Just then, the oppressive darkness melted away as a figure emerged, tall and imposing. It was Brandon, anger radiating from him like the bitter chill in the air. "I told you to stay away," his voice thundered, echoing through the trees, fueled by rage and a sickening sense of ownership. Ethan's fists clenched. "You can't have her. You don't own her." But before Brandon could retaliate, a thud shattered the frozen tension. Suddenly, something heavy fell from the branches above. A bag, bulky and dark. It landed in front of Brandon like a slow-motion horror. The noise echoed, and a familiar sound rang out. A clinking of metallic edges. Ethan's breath hitched. It was a bag full of evidence, items they both recognized from the past, the memories that should have stayed buried. "No!" Grace gasped, stepping forward as if drawn by an invisible force, her face caught between fear and disbelief. "Why do you have that?" Brandon's fury wavered, confusion threading through his voice. "You weren't supposed to find out." Ethan's heart raced as pieces began to click together. "I didn't steal it!" Grace shouted, her voice desperate, cracking under the weight of truth. "You left it! You left me! Why did you come after us?" Ethan's chest tightened. The truth was unraveling, flickering like the last embers of a fire before they die. It hit him like a punch to the gut. This was deeper than he thought. They were all tangled in a web of secrets. Brandon looked at Grace, and something cracked in his cold facade. You were never supposed to find out the truth about him. His eyes darted to Ethan, realization dawning. You're the one who ruined everything." "What truth?" Ethan spat back, fear and anger flooding through him. Brandon's gaze burned into him. "She wasn't meant to break free. I never wanted her to have a chance. And now you've all set things in motion that can't be undone." The laughter in his voice turned into a ghastly sneer. The air thickened, and suddenly the trees felt alive with tension, whispering secrets of anticipation. Ethan was caught in it now. He had saved Grace. But at what cost? What had he really brought into their lives? The wind picked up, howling through the branches, as if lamenting the fate coming for them all. Shadows darkened further, and a deep uncertainty flooded in as Ethan realized sometimes letting light in means unveiling even darker truths. And just like that, everything shifted around them. A churning maelstrom of unspoken history and potential doom. The frozen embrace of the woods felt like a prison suddenly tightening its grip. What would they each be willing to sacrifice to protect one another? As the storm gathered, Ethan's heart pounded. The real fight had just begun. What secrets lay buried just beneath the surface, ready to erupt? The wind howled louder, echoing the fear in Ethan's chest. Every muscle tightened as Brandon glared, a dark storm brewing in his eyes. Tension thickened in the air. The cold felt less daunting than the confrontation that lay ahead. Then Grace stepped closer. "Ethan, I can't let him hurt you. We'll run." Her eyes held desperation, but Brandon's presence loomed like a heavy fog, threatening to suffocate their fragile hope. "No!" Ethan shouted, heart racing. He gripped her arm to keep her back, yet a shadow of doubt crept into his mind. Could they really escape? "I'll end this," Brandon roared, his breaths visible in the frigid air, each word slicing through the tension like a knife. Every inch of Ethan screamed to defend them. But what could he do against a man who was a storm all by himself? Just as the standoff reached its peak, a sound shattered the night, a crack like thunder. The ground trembled beneath Ethan's feet. He stumbled, glancing around in panic, only to see the trees swaying violently. Then, from behind a thick cluster of pines, a blinding light erupted, brighter than the sun, engulfing them all. Ethan shielded his eyes. The darkness peeled back, revealing figures. Strange, ethereal forms danced into view, shimmering like the northern lights. They moved with an energy that felt alive, chaotic yet beautiful, and for a split second, all worries melted away. But then came a roar, like something from nightmares. The ground shook again, more violently this time. Ethan felt it in his bones. Something massive emerged from behind the curtain of light. He dropped to the snow, pulling Grace and Noah into the safety of his arms. Brandon stumbled back, fear flashing across his face. "What the hell is that?" he shouted, voice cracking. The figures collapsed into a mass of shadows, swirling as if caught in a tempest. Then it happened. With a deafening sound that drowned out all reason, a huge beast charged forth, the size of a car, with eyes burning like coal, fur dark as the night sky. Ethan's heart raced. This wasn't just a man's madness. This was something otherworldly. Ethan's breath caught in his throat. He stared, frozen, as the creature's gaze met his. It didn't snarl. It simply watched, a wild intelligence glimmering beneath its primal exterior. Then, suddenly, it lunged for Brandon. "No!" Grace screamed. But Ethan could only hold on tight, wide-eyed as the creature collided with Brandon in a moment that felt like it stretched into eternity. But then, in an instant, everything shifted again. A light emitted from the creature, illuminating Grace. Ethan blinked, confusion washing over him, as a whispering wind wrapped around her. "You sent for me?" It rumbled, deep and resonating. Brandon lay sprawled on the ground, wide-eyed, but the whispers echoed. Grace's face changed, morphing between fear and something else. Recognition? Revelation? I thought they were gone. She breathed, voice trembling. Ethan's world spun. Memories flashed in an instant. The tales Grace once shared, the impossibility of their truth. What do you mean, Grace? What is happening? And then came her answer, each word sharp and shocking. I didn't just run from Brandon. I brought this on us. I'm the one who unleashed this power. Everything felt heavy, like the snow beneath their feet. Ethan's heart broke. Confusion mixed with anger. What power? Had she been playing him this whole time? The creature stood sentry, eyes boring into them as if waiting for the next move. A guardian? A harbinger? Unsure if it would protect or destroy. The air turned electric. All Ethan knew was they were in the eye of an unfolding storm, and he was no longer sure if he was fighting for Grace and Noah or against them. The weight of secrets pressed down, heavy and ominous, and all he could do was brace for what would happen next. Nothing would ever be the same. Ethan's heart pounded as he stared at Grace, absorbing the chaos unfolding around them. The creature loomed large, an embodiment of all the terror Brandon had brought into their lives. It felt like the world was turning upside down. But then there was that voice again, echoing in the air. Sent for you? Nothing made sense. His grip tightened around Grace's arm. What do you mean? What kind of power? Grace's expression shifted, fear morphing into something deeper, deeper than he had ever seen. I didn't just run from Brandon, she said slowly, every word heavy with tension. I was trying to protect you, Ethan. I'm not who you think I am. Those words echoed in his ears, and his world threatened to split apart. Not who I think? What am I talking about? Ethan demanded, voice rising in the frigid air. No, Ethan, listen to me. Grace's voice cracked under the weight of truth. My family, they were just regular people. We had a legacy, a history, a power that's been passed down. And the only way to keep it safe was to stay hidden. The creature shifted slightly, its gaze unwavering. Ethan felt like the breath was sucked from his chest. Grace, you're scaring me. She took a deep breath, steadying herself. The truth is, I wasn't just running from Brandon. I was running from my own mother. She wanted me to embrace the power, to become the ruler, to use the creature you see before you, but I saw what it could do. I couldn't. I had to keep Noah safe. Brandon, still recovering from his confrontation with the creature, began to piece together his own panic. What? You mean to tell me this is all about magic? About you're some kind of... And it came. Like a bolt of lightning, a deep growl vibrated from the creature, transforming into an eerie voice that resonated in their bones. The chosen one. No! Grace shrieked, stepping forward, reaching for the creature. I didn't ask for this, any of this. Grace! Ethan shouted, even as something deep inside him stirred, a mixture of fear and rage. He felt a pulse, a dark energy around them, everything shifting with it. You've got to tell me the whole truth! Brandon, seething in confusion, pushed past Ethan. His anger boiled over. You think this can protect you? I will take everything from you. You're nothing without me. But before he could finish, the creature lunged, arching its back and letting out a howl that rippled through the trees. It was a fierce voice of otherworldly wrath, powerful enough to echo across the expanse of the frozen woods. In that moment, something flipped. The shadows gathered in the bark of the trees, swirling and fusing into a thick fog that enveloped them. Ethan stumbled back, dazed. "What are you doing?" "Unleashing what's hidden," Grace whispered, her eyes glowing with an intensity he had never seen. "I can't hold it back anymore. I won't let it control me." Suddenly, the ground shook violently. Snow erupted into the air. The blur of dark figures swarmed around. Anxiety seeped into Ethan's bones. Fear coursed through his body. Then, like the snap of a twig, something shifted inside Grace. "Forgive me," she whispered, and in the next instant, the light exploded from her, blinding and all-consuming. Ethan felt his heart drop as he stared. This wasn't just a mere glimmer. It was a violent burst of energy that contrasted the darkness Brandon brought with him. It tore through the space between them, altering the very fabric of reality. It was a primal scream given shape. He struggled to breathe. "Grace!" The light swallowed her whole, and with it, a part of his soul seemed to vanish. Just as quickly as it appeared, the light settled, leaving an eerie silence that felt heavier than the snow. The creature's figure loomed large. Now the darkness is unleashed. And in the void that followed, everything about their ties, their struggles, and their future hung in balance, wondering if would they ever reclaim what was lost, or if it was all too late. The light pulsed and flickered, filling the air with an electric energy that felt alive. Everyone stood frozen, breath caught in their throats. The creature loomed, its dark, fur-covered body glistening with ethereal brilliance, and for a moment, everything hung in silence, suspended in time. Then, without warning, the light began to fracture. The air thickened like fog around them, and shadows crept closer, blending into the brightness. Ethan's heart drummed erratically. "Grace, what are you doing?" But she remained focused, her expression shifting, the warmth of her resolve turning cold, as if something deep will. The creature flickered, its eyes blazing with a strange, unsettling recognition. And then, just as Ethan felt the urge to run, the ground trembled violently beneath their feet. A thunderous roar erupted from the creature's mouth, vibrating the very trees around them. All at once, the brightness dimmed, winding down into darkness, and panic clawed at Ethan's throat. The shadows twisted and formed into silhouettes, vague but unmistakably human. "Leave him! He's dangerous!" Grace shouted, panic sharp in her voice. But the words barely escaped her lips before the darkness enveloped them completely, hardening into a wall that pushed against Ethan. The creature's growl deepened, vibrating through him. Then the silhouettes stepped closer. They began to emerge, solidifying into figures that Ethan recognized with sudden horror. Faces from the past, blurred by loss, returned to the scene, weaving between the shadows. But then came the scream, a breaking cry that cut through everything. "Ethan!" The voice was unmistakable. It was Sarah, his wife, the very reason he had shut himself away from the world. She stood there, her eyes wide, caught between regret and anger. "What have you done?" she said, pointing accusingly at Grace. What? Ethan gasped, disbelief crashing over him like a wave. His heart raced as warmth spread cold again. His wife had vanished years ago, just as he had. Sarah. But she raised a hand, cutting off the question. You thought it was just grief? No, Ethan, it was power. You were never meant to be alone. I kept it hidden for you until you were ready. Everything shifted in Ethan's mind, fractals of memory twisting into jagged pieces. The woman he had loved, all those years of longing and heartbreak, what did she mean? Power? His fingers trembled at the truth curling around his thoughts. Grace's face turned pale, eyes darting between Ethan and the impossibility of his wife standing there. No, how? But you were dead? That's what I wanted you to believe. Sarah snapped, stepping forward, her gaze fierce and challenging. I did it to protect you both from what came after me, the darkness, the creature. It was never just mine to bear. Brandon, still on the ground, shifted. This is insane, he spat, confusion and rage flaring. This is all your fault, Grace. You think you can hold back the storm? You're trapped. But Ethan's world shattered again as his mind fought to comprehend. What are you saying, Sarah? What do you want? What is this power? Everything you lost, I kept hidden. A family legacy tied to the creature. The strength to let it through or the power to seize control. She cried out. Each word, a dagger driving into Ethan's soul. He staggered back as pieces of the puzzle fell into place. You were the one who left. You were the one hiding from the truth. No, I was trying to keep you safe, she retorted, eyes blazing at the hurt of lost years. Ethan felt the ground shift beneath him, a darkness breathing. He glanced between them, his wife alive, and Grace trembling beside him. What does this mean for us? For Noah? And suddenly it clicked. The very fabric of the world around them seemed to warp. This wasn't just a battle, it was a war of legacies, bloodlines, and twisted secrets. In that moment, everything was thrown into question. The creature let out another roar that split the air, as if understanding the clash between them. Ethan felt the pull of resolve, and still, doubt lingered heavy in his chest. Wherever this dizzying storm led them, nothing would ever feel the same again. What lay in the shadows still waiting to be unraveled? The trickle of hope mingled with a churning uncertainty, and all that remained was a question that clawed at his mind. What if, after all this time, everything he thought he knew was just the beginning? The air crackled with unfinished tension, heavy with secrets and unresolved pain. Ethan's gaze darted between Grace and the familiar face of Sarah, a whirlwind of emotions swirling like the snowflakes dancing outside. The creature, a dark sentient. What do you mean? The truth. Ethan's voice cut through the thick silence, desperation clawing at his throat. You can't just drop this and expect me to understand. Sarah stepped forward, her presence commanding yet fragile. Ethan, I wanted to protect you from all of this, from the darkness I've been running from too. But you're the one hiding. You're the one still keeping secrets. Grace's voice trembled, defensively rising against the weight of Sarah's accusation. Secrets? Brandon, still reeling on the ground, scoffed, disbelief etched across his face. You both think you can keep running forever? You think you're in control? Ethan shook his head, confusion flooding his mind, but something unthinkable flickered within him. Before he could voice his thoughts, the ground shook violently beneath them. The creature roared again, a primal sound that vibrated through their bodies. Then it happened. The dramatic twist that sent Ethan's world spiraling. A sudden flash of blinding light enveloped the scene, washing over them all in a brilliant glow. It was stunning, powerful, but within that light, shadows writhed and danced with a life of their own. Ethan squinted against the brightness, fear pooling in his gut. "Ethan!" Grace screamed, trying to pull him back, but the light grew, warping the very air around them. "No!" Then, just as suddenly, the brightness broke into shards, revealing a figure standing in the middle. A woman with glowing skin and haunting, luminous eyes. She radiated both terror and peace. "I am the true guardian of this power," she declared, her voice echoing through the forest. Ethan's heart raced. He squinted, trying to make sense of the apparition. Who are you?" The woman turned to Grace and smiled, something deeply familiar in her expression. "You were meant to join me, Grace, but you walked away. You chose the darkness, and darkness can't stay in the light." "No, no, no!" Grace shook her head violently. "I don't belong to you." The woman's gaze sharpened, ignited with intensity. "But the truth is, you were never meant to escape. You're the tether that binds this world, and all your family's power is a part of you. This is your destiny. This is why you cannot run." The ground trembled again, and Ethan felt the world shift like sand beneath his feet. The shadows morphed once more. And then that breath-grabbing moment came. Everything crumbled. From the wreckage around them, a voice thundered, malevolent and unmistakable. It was Brandon, rising to his feet, the remnants of his facade stripped bare. "You think I'm useless? I've known all along. Everything you did, Grace, it was always about me." Ethan's heart felt like it had been ripped out. "What do you mean?" With a sudden surge of strength, Brandon glanced back at the glowing woman. "She's not just a guardian. She's a collection of our past, a shadow of what's hidden deep within us both. I'm as much a part of this legacy as Grace, as all of you." An uproarious laugh echoed, breaking through the tension with a haunting clarity. "I ensured that you'd never uncover the truth." He sneered at Grace, Ethan, and now Sarah. "This power isn't just yours, Grace. It's ours." The revelation hit Ethan like a freight train, sending him reeling. His mind screamed. What had he stepped into? A twisted entanglement of fate. The urgency rose within him. Were they all connected, far deeper than he'd ever realized? The creature shifted, tension building tighter around them. The light flickered, shadows looming, and the air filled with a sense of chaos. All he could think was how everything was crumbling, and he stood at the center of it all. As the realization settled, one chilling thought coursed through him. What if the very fabric of their lives was woven together through a darkness neither of them could escape? "Ethan!" Grace shouted, eyes wide with fear and a hint of revelation. "We need to act now! This isn't just about us!" And as the thunder of the creature's cries filled the air, Ethan's thoughts spiraled into uncertainty. What precisely were they facing? Old bonds, new ties, the line between love and despair blurred. It was a storm on the horizon, and they were all caught in its eye, straddling the edge of something monumental. What had they unearthed? What truths waited to erupt in this perilous dance of fate? The air crackled with a tension that felt alive. Ethan's heart raced. He glanced at Grace, her eyes wide with fear and defiance. Then at Sarah, his wife, a figure he thought lost forever. Every moment felt like it might shatter, like ice underfoot, slipping into a deep, dark void. "What do you mean you kept it hidden?" Ethan managed to gasp. His voice came out rough, like gravel in his throat. "What else don't I know?" The ground trembled as Sarah stepped closer, desperation in her eyes. "There's more than just this creature. You were born into it, Ethan. You are tied to this power, just like Grace." A chill ran down Ethan's spine. "What do you mean tied? How?" Before she could answer, the creature roared again, this time louder and more powerful, shaking the very trees around them. Shadows danced, swirling like a whirlpool of darkness, and Brandon scrambled backward, eyes wide with fear. The darkness wrapped around him like a shroud. "What are you all talking about?" he yelled, panic rising. "I'm not powerless!" But Ethan couldn't focus on Brandon. He turned back to Sarah. "Tell me the truth. What do you mean about our connection?" And just then, the ground split open a deep, gaping fissure. Ethan staggered back, clutching at Grace's arm. The air screamed as if the world itself was unraveling. Above the chasm, the sky shifted. It wasn't just night anymore. It was a canvas of swirling galaxies, pulsing with energy. All at once, a figure erupted from the depths. A woman encased in flames with fierce, wild eyes that drank the light. The embodiment of chaos, beauty, and terror. She spun into the air, and the very nature of the scene shifted around them. "Stop this!" she shouted, voice piercing like a blade. "You have to understand, this was never about you." Ethan felt a strong pull, like an invisible string drawing him in. "Who are you?" he shouted, confusion raging within him. The fiery woman landed gracefully on the ground. "I am the embodiment of the true power, the force behind the darkness you cling to." "You think you are special, Ethan? But you were just a pawn in a game far larger than yourself." Ethan stumbled back, words choking in his throat. "A pawn?" She smiled wickedly, and the warmth radiating from her flickered like dying embers. "Yes, a vessel for a power that binds this world. It was never about destroying Brandon or saving Grace. It's about ruling everything." Sarah's jaw dropped. "No, this can't be. You can't control him." "What's her game?" Grace bit back, shaking with a mixture of anger and fear. The woman laughed, a chilling sound that vibrated in Ethan's bones. "Oh, I don't control him. He's mine." She reached out, and Ethan's heart sank as darkness enveloped him in a suffocating embrace. Suddenly, everything shifted again, and a wave of realization crashed over him. "Wait, you're saying I'm—" "No!" He fell back, heart racing. "I'm tied to this power?" The creatures that swirled around him weren't just shadows of his past. They were shadows of potential futures, moments where he could either rise up or fall into the abyss. Brandon, seizing on this moment, leapt toward the fiery woman. "You think I'm going to let him rule? You think this was your plan all along?" The fiery woman's laughter rang out, turning into a snarl. This isn't about plans, child. It's about what is destined. You only seem to believe you have any say. Confusion swirled like a storm, and Ethan felt the edges of his reality blur. No, he screamed, with what felt like the last of his strength. But as the darkness tightened around him, a voice echoed within, cutting through the chaos. One he hadn't heard in years. Ethan, it's time to decide. His breath hitched and everything froze in that moment. Each revelation transformed into shards of glass, slicing deeper than he could bear. What if he were meant to rule? What if all this time he was being pulled into something far beyond him? Ethan locked eyes with the fiery woman, heart pounding. A choice loomed before him: claim this power or be devoured. And just then, another shift. The light flickered back to life like a dying star. A breath of hope surged, battling against the consuming darkness. In that trembling moment, he gripped Grace's arm tighter. The truth seeped into the air. Nothing would ever feel the same again. What kind of monster had he become? And as the reality shifted one last time, Ethan realized he was standing on the edge of everything he believed. Would he rise? Would he shatter? Would anyone survive this storm? The light flickered, shadows swirling like a dance of chaos around them. Ethan's heart raced, pounding in rhythm with the roar of the creature. It pulsed with energy, its dark form thrumming against the icy ground. Sarah's voice cut through the storm. Ethan, you have to decide now. She stepped forward, her fiery gaze locking onto his, desperate yet determined. What do I do? He shouted, fear tightening his chest. What do you want me to choose? The air felt thicker, pressing against him, and Grace's trembling hand squeezed his tighter. You can't embrace this power, Ethan. It'll consume you. Panic painted her face, her eyes darting nervously as if seeing the weight of the world on her shoulders. Then the fiery woman, radiant and wild, tilted her head back, her laughter echoing like shattering glass. This is bigger than your little families and relationships. She leaned closer, her eyes glowing brighter. You are more connected than you think. Bloodlines run deeper than you could ever imagine. With each word, Ethan felt the ground tremble beneath his feet, each vibration echoing the truth, clawing at the back of his mind. But that's when it happened. Just as he opened his mouth to respond, everything went dark. The light extinguished as quickly as a candle snuffed out by a gust of wind. Silence suffocated them. A weight pressed down, halting breath and thought. And then from the shadows a whisper rose, soft and sinister. Oh, Ethan, it's time for the real truth. The voice wasn't from anyone he recognized. It twisted around him, slithering into his consciousness. You think you're just a pawn? Oh, how naive! Before Ethan could even flinch, a figure emerged from the depths, cloaked and ethereal, gliding forward with an unsettling grace. The moment he laid eyes on her, he felt the familiar ache of loss. "Mom?" he choked out, disbelief flooding his senses. "Yes, dear," she answered, her voice dripping with bittersweet affection. "You've been so brave, but there's a deeper connection you've yet to uncover." He struggled to comprehend. the earth spinning beneath him. "You've been alive? Why didn't you tell me? Why now?" "Because I needed you to awaken to your true purpose," she replied, stepping closer, her features becoming clearer, as if peeling away layers of doubt. "But this power, Ethan, it's been passed down through our bloodline. It was always meant for you." The other figures recoiled, startled. Brandon gaped, horror creeping into his expression. "Wait, you're saying we're all linked? Every single one of us?" Ethan felt a cold sweat break out on his brow. His mother's words wrapped around him like chains. "And Grace? What about her?" "Grace is intertwined with both your fate and mine," she continued, the shadows swirling around her like a cloak. "She is a part of this legacy too, but there's more. The creature, the influence you think you wield, it's not what it seems. It's meant to protect you, but it also feeds on your fears." Shock ripped through the air like lightning. "Ethan!" Grace cried, tears spilling silently. "You can't let this power take over you. Not now!" But just as the weight of revelation sank in, the earth trembled again. The fiery woman screamed and staggered backward, collapsing into the shadows, her power dissolving like mist in the wind. A shrieking howl burst from the creature, shaking the very roots of the forest. And then, from behind Ethan's mother, a dark figure emerged, much smaller, but undeniably familiar. A child. "Daddy!" Noah's voice broke the air, innocent and terrified. "No!" Ethan shouted, fear clawing at his insides as he lunged forward. The world spun violently, colliding with every frantic instinct to protect. But as he reached for Noah, everything snapped into chaos. The shadows erupted, and the connection forged was split apart. A blinding flash enveloped them, the darkness consuming everything, and Ethan felt the truth crumbling beneath him. In that heartbeat, the weight of choices felt insurmountable. "Ethan, you have to decide, now." But what was the choice anymore? What lay before him? And as the light flickered out again, everything he thought he knew unraveled into a tangled mess of secrecy and urgency. A question lingered in the air, heavy with impending doom. Would he save his son, or embrace the power that might tear them all apart? The light flickered out, leaving them in suffocating darkness. Ethan's heart raced, panic clawing at his insides. "Noah!" he shouted, desperately searching for his son amidst the swirling shadows. He could feel Grace's trembling hand in his, her fear matching his own. "Ethan, we have to go," Grace urged, her voice tight with urgency. "It's not safe here." But all he could think about was Noah. His little boy was caught in this chaotic storm. "I can't leave him!" Then suddenly there was a loud crash. The ground shook violently beneath them, sending Ethan reeling. "What's happening?" His voice echoed in the chaos. "Brace yourself!" Sarah yelled, eyes wide with alarm. But as she spoke, something shifted in the light. A fissure opened in the ground, a crack running like a serpent through the earth. From the depths of the chasm, a blinding light erupted, warming the air even as it threatened to pull them in. The creature roared, its form vibrating with explosive energy, and for a moment, time itself seemed to stop. Ethan shielded his eyes, panic surging. "Grace, hold on!" But as he turned to grab her hand, he felt something pull him back, a force like ice. His throat tightened. "Grace!" he shouted, but the sound was swallowed by the roaring winds around them. Suddenly, from the crack, a figure emerged. ethereal and shimmering. A woman materialized, her hair billowing as if caught in a storm. "Ethan!" she called, her voice slicing through the chaos like a knife. He recognized her immediately. "Mom?" It felt unreal, like a dream he couldn't wake up from. But before he could process, she reached out. "You must choose. Your son's life depends on it." "What?" Ethan's heart raced. "How is this even possible?" She didn't answer. Instead, she reached into her chest, pulling out something glimmering, a small, crystalline orb. "This is your legacy. You have the power to control it all, but you have to embrace it willingly, or it will consume you." He could hardly believe it. "Why didn't you tell me before? All this time I thought I was alone." As he spoke, the shadows twisted around him, melding with the light from the orb. It felt like thunder, rising within, a clash between darkness and hope. Everything he had fought for surged through him, tempting him, promising salvation, but threatening destruction. "Ethan!" Grace's voice pierced through the haze, sharp with fear. "Don't listen to her. She's lying. You can't trust her." But Sarah's eyes danced with urgency. "Ethan, if you don't act now, everything will be lost." In that heartbeat, a shocking truth crashed over him, a rush of memories. Aces flashing like lightning, all telling a story he had never understood until now. He looked at the orb, then back at Grace, torn between two worlds, one that offered power and one that held love. And then, just as his hand reached toward the crystalline orb, the ground beneath him exploded. A wave of force knocked him backward, sending him sprawling into the darkness. The world spun, and everything felt like it slipped away, caught in a tempest. "No!" he shouted, scrambling up. But as he steadied himself, he realized what had happened. "No, please." From the dense fog, the figure of Noah appeared, his little boy, eyes wide and terrified. Something about those eyes froze the blood in Ethan's veins. "Daddy, help me!" But the moment was shattered. The fiery woman erupted from the shadows, laughter echoing as she seized the orb from Sarah's hands. "You were all so blind," she cackled, her skin glowing bright, illuminating the dark. "This power has never belonged to you. It belongs to me." Ethan's heart dropped. "What are you talking about?" "I'm your true destiny, Ethan," she screamed, slashing through the air with power. "And now you have to decide who will survive, the boy or the legacy." Chaos swallowed everything. Darkness surged, and suspicion curled through Ethan's mind like a snake. Trust shattered, friendships fractured. Everything he thought he knew screamed to be questioned. What did it mean for Noah? What did it mean for Grace? As his world spiraled out of control, Ethan stared into the heart of the storm, knowing he had to make a choice. Everything hung in the balance. Who would he save? And what would be worth losing? Ethan's pulse raced, and every breath felt like it could shatter him. As the flames flickered around the fiery woman, he realized they were standing at the brink of oblivion. Noah's terrified face anchored him, but Grace's pleading eyes anchored his heart. "You must decide," shouted Sarah. "You can control the darkness or let it devour you." The shadows pulsed, a heartbeat of chaos surrounding them. Ethan's hands trembled. He looked at the orb, gleaming with power, radiating warmth. Or was it a trap? Images of his past flooded his mind. moments with Noah, laughter, love, and even times of despair. Every heartbeat echoed a question that twisted in his gut. "Ethan," Grace gasped, breaking through the noise of his thoughts. "We can fight together. We don't need this." The words slipped into his heart like sunlight breaking through a storm. He tightened his grip around her hand, his resolve strengthening. "You're right. I won't let it twist who I am." Suddenly, the fiery woman lunged, sparks flying from her fingertips. "You think you can run away from your legacy? It's in your blood." A surge of energy blasted through Ethan. The sensation was unbearable. Fear mixed with a spark of hope. "No," he yelled, drawing strength from the love he felt for Noah. "I choose life." With those words, he turned to the orb, and a blinding light enveloped him. The warmth wrapped around his heart, casting shadows away. The darkness screamed and twisted, battling against his resolve. Then he felt it. An opening in the chaos. A moment of clarity. "Together!" he shouted, the word ringing out, full of defiance. "Together!" Grace echoed, and suddenly they were bound, her energy merging with his. Their hands connected, shooting a wave of light that pushed back the darkness. The creature howled, thrashing against the growing force. Ethan's heart surged as he felt the power shift. Noah screamed. "Daddy, hold on, buddy!" Ethan shouted. He could feel the energy building. The light began to pull the shadows apart, revealing a path before them. "Protect him!" Grace urged, determination shining in her eyes. The burst of energy swelled, encompassing them all. The fiery woman screeched, her power no match for the purity of their bond. Then, with one final roar, the creature exploded outward, releasing colors Ethan had never seen. The shadows were cast away, and in their place remained a soft glow, wrapping them like a warm hug. Panting, Ethan looked around. Sarah's figure began to fade, her ethereal glow a reminder of the choice he made. "You did well, my son," she whispered, warmth in her eyes as she dissolved into the light. "Dad!" Noah cried, rushing into his arms. Ethan cradled him, relief flooding him. He had chosen family, chosen hope. Grace stepped closer, her eyes shimmering. "We did it, Ethan. We really did it." "Yes," he breathed, heart swelling. Then a thought crept in, a question lingering. Was this the end, or the beginning? The air felt lighter, but a weight still hung in the corners of their victory. There were still shadows out there, uncertainty simmering beneath the surface. Would they return? Would darkness ever find its way back? As they stood there, holding each other, the world continued to shift around them. A new path opened, an adventure beckoning them forward. Ethan whispered a promise into the wind. "Whatever comes next, we'll face it together." And with that, they stepped into the new dawn, uncertain but united, ready to uncover the mysteries still waiting to be discovered. Hey everyone! Before you dive back into your day, I have something super important to share. You must subscribe to the channel right now so you don't miss out on any of the exclusive stories coming your way. Seriously, this is the moment to show your support. Hit that like button, smash it if you can, to feed that algorithm and help us reach more awesome fans like you. And don't wait 1 second longer to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to know this ending. Let's see those reactions. Flood the comments section with your theories and what you thought of this finale. Your engagement makes all the difference. Let's keep this community growing and exploring together.